So Halloween Kills was supposed to come out in 2020. It got delayed a year due to COVID, pandemic, stand 6 feet apart, don't cough in my face. And I think that played a huge part, Blake, in building a lot of these horror channels that are staples of YouTubers right now, because that gave a whole year of worth of content of what if, is this going to happen? Is that going to happen? And like a lot of these channels built their sub count and their membership count off of the delay of Halloween Kills and constantly being able to come every day and talk about what might happen.
I don't remember what was going on at the time, Ronnie, but for some reason, when this movie dropped, I think it dropped on Peacock.
It did.
I don't know if it dropped at a certain time at night or something, but there was something going on to where me and my boys had to watch this on my phone the night it dropped. I mean, it was set up kind of like this. I'm set up here, and we were all just gathered around my phone watching, and it was a really fun night. Like that, we're gonna get into it, but I think this opening scene rivals what I said yesterday about 2018.
Can you remember what your thoughts and feelings were as the movie ended? Like what kind of feeling you had after you watched it for the first time? I mean, was it like were you pumped? Were you like,
Honestly, it was an uneasy feeling. It was what happens now, because in my mind, we all know what happens with Karen up in that bedroom. The police are everywhere downstairs.
yeah.
So I'm like, in my mind, I'm thinking two things. Was what I just saw real? And did Michael just get arrested?
I want to say when I watched this movie the first time, and we had a big ordeal in the room. We turned the lights off, me and Lindsay, and pretty sure Caden and his wife were here too. And we watched Kills, and I remember the end of the movie. I was so pumped, and then there was a swerve, and then the Karen deal at the end of it. And I remember as the credits rolling, thinking, "What the hell?" Because I didn't know where they were going. You know, it was announced early on after the success of Halloween 2018 that they were going to make two more movies and make it a trilogy, and that it was all going to take place on the same night. And that had me super pumped because then you don't have to wait years for for it to happen again. It doesn't make any sense. But a guy breaking out or escaping 40 years after he escaped on Halloween and creating terror over a night that lasts 3 movies, that's plausible and makes a lot of sense. So I was wondering, how is he going to get out of that house? He just killed her. Is she really dead? And I just had a weird feeling. It wasn't like I went from, and we'll get to it. I went from really pumped about, I was like, they are going to do this. And then they didn't do it. And you get the bad guy winning at the end. So you just brought up the opening of Halloween 2018 and how you think the opening of this movie is much better. Is that what you said?
Well, you know how much I love the opening of 2018. And then this one, I just feel like it outdoes it. We get Cameron walking down the street. He's trying to get a hold of Allison. He's ruined his relationship with Allison. He's been drinking all night. He comes across Officer Hawkins. By the way, little uh, tidbit in there. He tries to call Oscar, gets Oscar's voicemail. Then we get the recap. Hey, Oscar's hanging on the fence. I love stuff like that. Like you hear the phone ringing, you hear Oscar's voicemail, but what we're seeing on from the viewer standpoint is Oscar's dead. It's basically recapping us, right? He comes across Hawkins' dead body, and I remember you being bummed leaving the 2018 theater saying, man, Hawkins was such a good character. I wish they wouldn't have killed him off. And I can't remember if you had the reaction in the trailer. I guess it had to be the trailer, but when you found out Hawkins was alive, you're like, what? Come on.
Yeah,
Because
got run
they
over.
they cut his they had to slice some important stuff in that neck. And if you were thinking, well, maybe he lived, then they backed over him.
Yeah.
So, I mean, Jesus
They
Christ. But
I think they realized, obviously they realized quickly that Hawkins was a good character and they could go further with him. So they retconned it. They had him be alive at the beginning of this one, and you start the process of redeeming Cameron. He's just a jerk in the first one, and this one he's walking around saying I'm a jerk. And I thought that was very cool to see the phone light up in Oscar's costume, and he's hanging there dead. They haven't even found his body yet, so you really don't know what point in time Cameron's walking around. It could have been immediately after Sartain drove away, and Cameron comes walking up. But he puts he's like, "What's going on, man?" And he puts the gauze or whatever against his neck, and Frank immediately wakes up. And then you get the repeat of the line that Dr. Loomis said: "It needs to die, and I have to be the one that kills it." I'm paraphrasing there.
It's perfect.
And it starts it really, in a way, was an amazing scene, because now I'm invested in this guy killing Michael. And then what follows is, the internet likes to complain, but it was, oh man, they're doing flashback scenes. They're going to ruin the original. How? Okay, literally how. So these flashback scenes, how, white man? Anybody that says anything bad about David Gordon Green and whatever choices he made in these movies, he gets a pass, because he gave us the closest thing to 78 that we're ever going to get with these flashbacks. And these flashbacks were perfect. I mean, we get to see Hawkins as a young cop immediately after Michael has left the premises of the Doyle house, and you're introduced to young Hawkins, who's firing at Michael Myers, and the mask was perfect. The guy that was playing Michael Myers was perfect. And this is what I love about this, Blake, and I've repeated it a million times on our channel. I love to see the aftermath and the panic. These cops, even though we get to meet them just in these flashbacks, they seem like really interesting characters. Obviously Hawkins, but these other three that walk up, because Hawkins fires twice at Myers, and that look that Myers gives Hawkins when he tells him to freeze, and then he looks back and continues on, and then Hawkins sees that he hit him, and because there's blood there, and
I'm not 100% sure if he hit him, Ronnie, or if that's him still bleeding out from Loomis.
Possibly.
I like to think he didn't hit him, because Hawkins is proven later to be a horrible shot.
You're right, and that's probably more realistic. As he's checking this blood trail, these other cops come running up, obviously scared to death, obviously panicked by everything that's happened. And this main guy, I guess is Hawkins' partner, is like, head over to Lampley. You ever head over to the bypass? And that one's like, Loomis said he shot him multiple times in the chest. So, I mean, that is out there. He's obviously in the car with Brackett at the time, or I know that doesn't exist in this timeline. But the cops know about Loomis. They know that he shot him at the Doyle house. They know Michael Myers is his name, and he's out there, and they're like just fanning the town to try to find it. Now, there are some things that aren't very good, because immediately they set up this storyline about him looking out the window. And I'm not saying that storyline is bad. I'm just saying nothing ever comes of it. But, immediately this cop is like, yeah, my mom used to make me play with Michael Myers. And Frank's like, was he a weirdo? He goes, no, he was just really quiet, and he stood in his sister's bedroom all the time looking out the window. And we never could figure out what he was looking at. And that comes into play later in this movie. I'm going to let you talk about the flashbacks, because I know you love it, but I just want to talk about probably my favorite part of the flashback. And besides, right before we go to credits, all right, is the Mulaney's are beating the shit out of Lonnie. And the cop rolls up in his car, and he goes, have you kids seen a man in a white mask? And they're like, we've seen a lot of masks tonight. What's the big deal? Well, he killed 3 kids down the street. Get home now. And he takes off. He doesn't make sure that they are going to be safe, because Michael could be anywhere in the area. He is just heading over to the next street to try to find his panic everywhere. Oh, man, I loved seeing the aftermath of what happened in part 1, and I think he did a great job with it.
Well, Hawkins says it needs to die, and I'm the one that's going to kill it. And then, bam, Halloween night 1978 and something I didn't mention yesterday, Ronnie, in the 2018 review is they give us all the Halloween classics as far as the theme and that, but they play it at different moments, right? Like we're used to the original in part two. They play the this theme here, they play that theme here. They mix it up. Like we get the Halloween theme of it looks to be Hawkins running with those old school sounding sirens in the background.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, you and I have said it a million times, probably in a million videos, but this is proof right here that we could get alternate timeline movies that take place in 78, in 81, 82, you know, sequels to different movies, different timelines, Friday the 13th. This crew that was behind this flashback scene proved we could get whatever we really wanted. The detail, the attention to detail is I
Second
mean
to none.
I don't even know what to say because every little thing, and I'm sure people even examined it better than you and I have because we're honestly we're really not that into it, but Jesus Christ, everything is perfect, man. Everything is perfect. I thought when I found out there was going to be a Loomis, I was like, you know, because that usually gets screwed up pretty bad. But I mean, Jesus, it looked like him, it sounded like him, and they didn't give him too much, you know,
Yeah.
and they didn't give him too little because you're like, wait a minute, if Loomis rolled up on Myers, he's not going to be quiet. And I thought it was perfect, and I love this alternate storyline that we got. I thought it was brilliant, and you know, I was gonna argue coming in that they didn't give Myers credit for this kill because Lori in the I think in 2018 she said he killed 5 people, which would have been Judith, the mechanic, and her 3 friends.
Yep.
And I was like, well, wait a minute, didn't they pin it on this? Didn't they pin this one on Michael? No, they didn't. They said when he pulled his gun up, he accidentally shot himself. Is the
Yeah.
story that they were going to go with? So I thought that was I thought it was just a masterpiece.
It also goes into why Frank's a burnout and why, you know, because he's been living with this for 40 years, accidentally shooting his partner. The attention to detail you brought up, everything from the crack in the window to the dead dog on the floor to Michael coming out with rope to choke and strangle the deputy, rope that he stole from the hardware store. Imagine that. I mean, that's what Brackett tells us. He took some knife, some mask, and some rope. Well,
Yeah.
there was the rope he talked about. Him coming out of the side door like that was reminiscent of him attacking Bob with the same speed.
Yep.
And then you can see the cop trying to fight back with punches to the stomach with no effect. And Hawkins tries to shoot him and accidentally shoots his partner. And he's been living with that and covering it up. And it was that grief that led to him, we find out later in the movie, stopping Loomis from shooting Michael in the back of the head. And the way this movie, you know, you can hear Loomis outside, there he is, the evil is here, or something like that. And it cuts to out front, and you see facial shots of all the cops. It's him. It's Michael Myers. And then he's just standing there frozen like he was at the beginning of part one, you know, not moving, like he's out, you know, he's no longer motivated, just standing there. I'm going to let you guys capture me and you're going to take me back to the hospital. That was really good. And I don't know what your thoughts are. I like this opening. I think this is the best opening in the franchise. I really do.
It's hard to argue against. It really is. I mean, I like Michael floating down the river as much as the next guy, but this is really good. And before we really kick off into the review, Ronnie, I was ready to come in here based off watching this movie probably 2 years ago and say, I like it, but it's just okay because I think they might try to turn Michael into Jason Voorhees. And I'm glad I didn't come in here with that because I watched this movie today. Screw that opinion. This is good. This is a good movie, and it's a great follow up to 2018.
This review will be a little bit different from the Halloween 2018. We're not going to go 90 minutes, but we are going to hit everything that we think is important. I think this is the Michael Myers movie that everybody wanted as far as getting to spend. It's like we're with Michael for the majority of this movie. The movie starts off, you know, with that great opening. And then we go, I know, to one of your favorite scenes in this movie, and that's the bar with all these characters we're about to be introduced to. So if you want to talk about that, you can.
I've said it before. Part of me wishes that this speech from Tommy Doyle would have been in the trailer. I think it's fantastic. I think somebody like you or Darren that make these fake trailers could put that voiceover over a trailer, and it would be money. I did have a question for you coming into it though. Even though I like that scene, there's a scene in 2018 where I forget Aaron's squeeze name. I forget her name, Ronnie. But there's a scene where she's describing Michael's kill of Judith as she was sitting there brushing her hair. And it got me thinking, what if we got a scene of her or Aaron preparing their podcast and they're telling this same story. These girls walked down the street and reported seeing a guy in a white mask following them. Do you think that would have added anything to it?
But I think that would be good. I mean, I wish they had planned everything out. And like I think once upon a time you said you wish part one had started with Tommy Doyle giving this speech on Halloween night or whatever.
But the only problem with that logic I had saying that, Ronnie, is the ending of the speech. There's so many good cuts to this, Hawkins' speech and then cutting to 78 and then Tommy's speech. And he's like, here's to Lori, wherever you are. And then boom, we're cutting to the back of the truck. This is what's happening at the end of 2018. Dude, it's so good.
And that was a clip they gave away early on when they threw us a bone when they knew it was going to be a year, was seeing the house on fire and seeing Lori in the back of the truck as the first responders pass screaming, let it burn. Let it burn. These characters in this movie, I know we talked good about the characters in 2018. I think the characters in this movie are better. You made a point that the relationships between all these characters are really good. Lonnie, I really like Lonnie in this movie. When I first heard Lonnie Lamb is coming back, I rolled my eyes. But this actor did a great job with this role. I'm a huge Anthony Michael Hall fan. I don't think there was enough written into this character for him to be what he could have fully been. Unless the character was supposed to be a dumbass loser. Okay. And it's possible that's what it's supposed to be. But and I've got questions, but I love the tight knitness of the characters and how everybody knows everybody. And while all this horrible stuff is going on in Haddonfield on Halloween night, they're constantly running into people they know. Cameron's mentioning Mr. Tommy is getting a search party together. Karen knows him. Everybody knows everybody. But I still got to ask the question of how do they know each other? And what I mean by that is these characters assemble every year on Halloween to drink and party and celebrate surviving Michael Myers. And me and you have talked about it before. How the hell is the nurse able to relate to what would be 6-year-old kids at the time, 7, 8-year-old kids, however old they were, and she's going to meet up with these guys 10 years later on? When did they start this tradition, I guess, is what I should bring up, because how is she friends with them? Tied in for me, I guess, is what I'm saying. Tied in. I know how Tommy, Lindsay, and Lonnie are friends, but other than saying we're bringing all these legacy characters back, so we got to find a way to put them in here, make it make sense for me.
I can't do that, Ronnie. All I can say is this should have been Sheriff Brackett's role. He shouldn't have been a security guard at the hospital. He should have been at this bar as an old man who has been miserable since 78.
He should own the bar. Brackett should have owned the bar. I'm going to throw that out there right now. It would have made sense for Brackett to become an alcoholic after his daughter was murdered, and he didn't do more than he thought he could have on Halloween night, because he wanted to alert the papers and the news, and Loomis wouldn't let him. So it would make sense for Brackett, after retiring, to open up a bar and be an alcoholic, and you could still have the bat back there, and Tommy could still take the bat, and everybody comes in there on Halloween night. Maybe it's not the best idea, but I think taking a former sheriff and making him a security guard at the hospital is not the way to go. I'm gonna add one in, Blake, and you tell me if I'm wrong.
Michael Myers at the mall does sound like a fun movie.
Brackett is so old in this movie. Should they have recasted?
Uh,
Because it's sad.
it
And,
is.
you know, because
It
as
is.
somebody that's watched a ton of Charles Cypher's movies, to see him, his face, I know he's 100, but his face looked weird. He had the dick nose.
This guy
He
here's dead.
he can't move. Why not just recast him? I know people would have bitched, but they're going to bitch anyway. All right. The same people that would have griped complained that they killed these legacy characters off.
Yeah.
Why did you think they were bringing them back? Did you think they were bringing Marion back to have a huge role? No, they're bringing Marion back so Myers could kill her off. It's called Halloween Kills. He's finishing the people he didn't kill originally. So, I mean, that fake outrage over that. I think you could have had. No, I guess he's supposed to be 90. He's supposed to be in his 70s. I guess it's good this Charles Cyphers. We got that role, but I'm just thinking maybe somebody a little bit more with a little more pep in their step that just don't get sliced and diced there at the end of it, not being able to defend themselves.
What are you thinking, Jonah Hill?
Yeah, Jonah Hill, or my go-to is always Gosling. So Ryan Gosling and old makeup, or the way they did the Penguin guy. You just make him come out there as a penguin.
I can't. Brittany Griner.
No, but the characters, I do love the characters in this movie. They introduced some really good characters. You got Lonnie, okay, and Lonnie establishes right away that Ray from the first one, he was the one selling the mushrooms and the peyote, not him. You've got I'm going by your notes, by the way. Allison and Cameron, they are very likable together in this movie. I do like Cameron. He redeemed himself. A lot of people compare it to Brady in part 4. I hate to inform you guys, but Brady in part 4 never redeemed himself. He was still stuck in a house, and Rachel happened to be the only person left alive. Okay, there's no redeeming there.
He was a pussy. Ronnie, watching this back, I wasn't annoyed in the hospital like the internet told me to be when I first watched it, and like I was. They didn't chant "Evil Dies Tonight" a billion times like I thought they did. It really wasn't that bad, man. What'd you think about that? I know that's way ahead, but what'd you think?
No, I don't think we have to go in any type of order. Everybody's seen Halloween Kills. I'm going to tell you this right now, Blake. This is where we're going to disagree. I think the biggest faults of this movie. One is the hospital, because I have no idea why any of that took place. They spend so much time on this skullet-headed running around, and we're supposed to feel bad for him. But I just spent an hour and a half in the previous movie knowing that he's at a very dangerous psychiatric hospital. So he's not in there because for anxiety. He's in there because he's a dangerous criminal. So I don't need to feel sorry for him when this town's trying to tear him apart. I don't need to feel sorry for him when he jumps out of the damn window. That's one less crazy we got to deal with, and he's off the payroll. We don't have to pay for him anymore. I didn't like that. I didn't like the Evil Dies Tonight. It doesn't get on my nerves. I know there's fake outrage over it. This movie suffers from trying to give people, or characters, I guess I should say, too much dialogue. And what I mean by that is and it's a pretty cool scene when Karen finds out Michael Myers is still alive. Maybe the best part the sheriff has in any of this until it ends is he goes, I'm sorry, Karen, you haven't heard? Michael Myers is still alive. And she's freaking out thinking he's going to come there to get her mom. And Allison already knows. He doesn't even know about her grandmother. It was Sartain who brought him there. Sartain's dick is on display too, by the way, in that one room. But this movie suffers from giving dialogue like Cameron saying, for 40 years, this guy's terrorized our family. You didn't mention that in the last movie. You look sort of like, what's going on when Laurie come in? And then you've got Allison saying things like, for 40 years, he's done this. Okay. And then they tried to give Laurie I do like the fact that they take Laurie away and it sort of becomes Karen's movie and Michael and Karen's movie for a little while. I mean, Laurie laid up in the bed. That was perfect. But they try to give her the Loomis lines and she can't do it. And the writing's not there, And I'm going to jump straight to it. That whole thing that she had to get in, this whole hospital scene, if I had to bet, is Jamie Lee Curtis's idea. This whole mob mentality thing, I guarantee, is Jamie Lee Curtis's idea. She thinks Michael broke out to come after her. She's about to be told she's wasted her whole life. Hawkins ends up in the same bedroom in the same hospital room as she does. And Hawkins tells her, he wasn't coming after you. It's the doctor that brought him to you. He doesn't even know who you are. And she immediately pivots to, yeah, but look what he's done to this town. There was no self-reflection of, I've wasted my whole fucking life preparing for somebody that didn't even know I was damn alive. She immediately pivots character-wise to talking about what he's done to the town. There was no moment of reflection there. I think this movie suffers from characters saying shit that they would never say.
And I agree with that. I think, and maybe this don't make sense to you, or maybe you don't want to hear it or whatever, but I think the whole hospital scene was well written, thinking ahead for what the town is going to be and Halloween ends.
I'm not sure they were thinking that far ahead, but if they were, okay.
I'm giving them credit. I'm going to go ahead and give them credit. And even if they weren't thinking that far ahead, hey, we did this in Kills. This is where we need to pivot to. I thought it was well done. And I guess the reason I think it's well done is because I know where they're going. This town is ruined 4 years later.
Yeah.
Everyone walks on eggshells. They think it's a curse. But anyway, back to Kills. I thought Michael looked really good. The burn mask, I thought it looked fantastic. And you got the Tommy Jarvis theory that, if it wasn't for Tom Matthews in part 6 digging him up for selfish reasons, everybody that dies in part 6 and beyond, it's on him.
Yeah.
You can make the same argument for Laurie Strode, Ronnie, because you said on the 2018 review, she gets him in that cage. If she just shoots him in the head instead of wanting to burn him alive, if she just shoots him in the head 1,000,000 times, then burns him, we're good. But no, she had to just burn him alive and leave. And now everyone that died, like first responders, the firemen that show up, they're not coming there to fight. What are you talking about? There's a house on fire. We're trained to save whoever's inside. By the way, Ray got a free cremation, didn't he? They didn't have to pay for shit on that one, did they? No, but the firemen show up and you're like, wait a minute, there's 15 firemen. Yeah, they're not there to fight. It's not like the mob later on. They're there to help whoever's there. And they see this guy. They don't know who it is. They don't know Michael Myers is in that house, Ronnie. They think it's somebody that needs saving. And now, obviously, when he puts a skill saw to someone's face, then it's like, what do we do? The one guy's got the hose and tries to spray him with it. I'm sure that felt great.
That damn hose would have blew him back 50 feet. They used to do that shit in the 60s all the time. No, here's the deal. The Michael scenes, and you're right, it's Laurie's fault. I'm not even sure Michael would have died down there. That fireman falls through the floor, and then he's like radioing for help, and in the background you see her little gun safe garage door raise up. There's a possibility he could have just stayed in there till the fire went out. Obviously, the smoke didn't bother him. The heat burned his mask a little bit, but he looked like he was perfectly safe. Most of those gun safes, are fireproof. I know that's a garage door and somebody's going to hit me on that. It's not fireproof, but there's no guarantee that he wouldn't have been alive there at the end of that anyway. He comes out and it's a badass walkout. It's fake ass fire in the background sort of ruins it for me. But when he comes walking out, all those firemen are like, holy shit, what's going on here? And it's a pretty cool scene of him killing all the firemen. Is it like drop my jaw awesome? No, because it sort of looks wooden in some places. Whatever his name is, James Jude Courtney or whatever, he looks wooden in some of those motions that he does. But I guess that might have been a choice because Michael's supposed to be, 61 years old. So he probably wouldn't be like John Wick. But I thought from that point on, that amazing scene right there of him killing all the firemen, and then he immediately works down the line to Sandra and her husband's house. It's amazing that the lady from the cemetery is the next door neighbors with Laurie Strode. The husband comes out with his CPAP or whatever, and he goes, smells like Lucky Strikes in here. And she goes, because that crazy ass woman burned her house down over there. And they're flying this little drone around, and then it like hits the ground in another room and it gets thrown out to them. And in a very cool scene, he walks over and touches the light on, and Michael immediately bashes the light, and he slams the door and goes to running. Sandra, there's a guy wearing a monster mask.
Yeah, I don't know what accent that is, but I love
Boston.
that. Sandra, there's a big fella in here wearing a monster mask. To hell with that shit. Call the cops. Yeah, it's a really cool scene. You talked about it when we first reviewed this movie. That it's one of your favorite kills because you get to see Michael actually doing his masterpiece. Putting
Yeah.
together his artwork or whatever. So I thought it was really, really well done.
Yeah, it's brutal kills. He like pulls the guy down over some broken glass, and then he goes in there after the woman, and he breaks off what's it called? What kind of light is that? They use it in wrestling all the time. What's it called?
Bulb.
He takes that light and he stabs her in the neck in like a brutal scene, and then he makes her just sit there. Look, they cut back, and I'm going to go ahead and say it. Top 3 scene in Halloween movie history is the scene where he's consistently stabbing this guy in the back, and the little motions that you can't really see, but you can see like it's sort of fuzzed up a little bit. It's not clear, but you can see him sort of doing this with his head, and he grabs another knife and he places it where he wants it, and he's looking, and he grabs another one and he places it where he wants it, and then he finds a knife that he likes, and he just walks out and leaves. I think that's the creepiest scene that they've ever put in a Halloween movie, because you get to see that he is in fact like making
Retarded.
he's making art. He is leaving a visual for everybody that comes in there, and he's putting thought into it. Do I want to put it here? Do I want to put it there? And it doesn't come off as cheesy. It doesn't come off as gay. It just comes off as scary and creepy. And then he moves on to another place.
Yeah.
I mean, we get to see Allison and Karen grieving over Ray, because I was wondering in the first movie in 2018, why aren't they worried about where the husband is or anything like that when they're running to a truck? Why aren't they saying, where's Ray? I guess somebody could go, hey, they probably knew he was dead. So they're just trying to get the hell out of there. But they were grieving, saying he'll always be with us. And then immediately Cameron shows up, and it's time to go. They show scenes of Tommy Doyle telling everybody, hey, we got to gather up. We got to go get him right now. And, in that piece of shit car he's driving.
There's a scene where it's a false alarm. You mentioned it earlier. The couple that I thought was Julian's parents, I guess that's racist of me.
Yeah.
It's not. He lives across the street from them. But
you also thought Sandra was everybody thought Sandra was the nurse for that white man.
Yeah.
He was just trying to change his look.
Okay. That got me a little bit for some reason. What was I saying? So Tommy goes out with the baseball bat, and he says something that kind of stuck with me, Ronnie, that I never noticed. After the penguin drives off, he says, I'm going to get you.
Yeah.
Those words, though, they haunted Tommy in 1978. What did Lonnie and his bullies say? He's going to get you. He's going to get you. The boogeyman is going to get you. And Tommy's fate, man, this has been his whole life. And I've said this to you before. The last thing Tommy sees on this earth is Michael's face, those dark eyes. He don't see eyeballs, the devil's eyes. That's the last thing he sees. A little bit of his blood splash up onto Michael's face. The boogeyman got him. That is incredible writing. That is incredible attention to detail that people don't pick up on. These David Gordon Green movies are fantastic.
The PTSD Tommy lives with. He got all the creepy scenes. He got all the creepy scenes in the original movie. He was one that looked out the curtain and just saw the body over there, in the silhouette in the darkness staring at Annie's house. He's the one that was hiding behind the curtains when he saw the boogeyman carry Annie through the front door. So and then at the end of it, he's face to face with this boogeyman who kills him.
Yes. And people have the balls to say they ruined Tommy. What are you talking about, ruined Tommy? It was an 8-year-old boy. Ruined Tommy. But anyway, who cares about that crap? Listen, every character is not supposed to be the best character in the movie. Okay. That's not the way it goes. That's not real life. This character is perfect. It's what I expect a traumatized person to grow up to be. It's how I expect them to talk. They want to be tough. They want to sound tough in front of everybody, but when it's time to really get tough, they're scared and they shit their pants.
Tommy also has some dumb parts where, you know, he's asking how you know it's him when they're chasing the penguin around the hospital. I mean, Tommy is in the
Okay.
bar. Tommy's in the bar and it flashes up on the TV, the penguin and Michael Myers, both of their photos as people that are still out and about. And later in the movie, he goes, he's always wearing a mask, right? How are we supposed to know this ain't him? So that kind of throws me off of the perfect part of it. I do agree with you. Maybe that was the choice to play it like a PTSD person. And at the end of it, he is a big giant P because he's faced with the boogeyman and his plan didn't work. And now he's like, oh shit. I just those little moments stick with me for some reason. And that's what I nitpick about this. Okay. I do think bringing him back was a great idea. I think a lot of people hoped he would come back and be like a badass or something like that. But you hit it on the head when nobody really sort of makes it through the other end unscathed when you go through a traumatic situation like that. It's always with you. And he's based his whole life, apparently, all these people have based a large part of their life around being Michael Myers survivors to the point where they gather up once a year to celebrate, surviving the boogeyman. So it's something they are constantly thinking about.
Can I float something out there for you though, Ronnie, on the complaint that they confused him with the penguin guy? Are we to believe that everybody knows what Michael looks like after 78?
Well, no, they flashed a picture on the TV in the bar.
But they never said his name, Ronnie. The newscast said these are the two inmates that had not been recovered. But there's no names on the screen, and the newscasters don't say the name. So let me tell you this: this isn't today. So in 1978, Michael murders all these people. Ronnie, if they don't read about it in the paper like the following week or two, I mean, it's not trending worldwide. They're not going to see his picture every day. These people probably don't know what he looks like. I mean, honestly, other than Lori seeing him in the courtroom, she probably would struggle to know what he looks like 40 years later. She hadn't seen him all throughout this time. So when they flash this guy on the screen, the camera subtly goes to a stranger in the hospital, said, I saw that guy on TV. Oh, I'm sorry. When the penguin's walking through the hospital, they show a guy in the hospital and he goes, hey, I saw that guy on TV. And that's how the panic spreads. Tommy never sees him. But what Tommy's doing, Ronnie, at the side of the dead body with Brackett, he's trying to rationalize what he just caused. Yeah. How do you know it's not him? He always wore a mask, right? You don't know it's not him. This could be him. That's what's going on.
I thought this movie flowed really well. I do want to touch base on the other flashback, which is when Hawkins tells Laurie about his guilt and how he shot his partner and how him and the other guy covered it up. And then how he stopped Loomis. And I thought it was an awesome scene. A lot of people don't like seeing Michael Myers in a weakened spot. But if this really happened, they would have beat the living shit out of this guy, just like they did in the front yard with that nightstick. And they yanked the mask off of him, in anger. He's knocked out. And Loomis is about to blow the back of his effing head off when Hawkins runs in and says he's not going to let anybody else die tonight. And there was another saying that never came to fruition that I hated, because Hawkins says he's a 6-year-old boy in a man's body. And that's never been the case with Michael Myers. He's always been smarter. He's always been a calculated thinker when it comes to trying to get these people. So I did not like that little throwaway line. And that's the things that stick with me from Halloween Kills is Laurie Strode trying to be Loomis with these terrible lines, and that 6-year-old boy in the body of a man, and then 40 years he's terrorized our families. That's my only complaints with this movie besides Evil Dies Tonight. I can deal with it. There's usually one bad part in every movie. But the good outweighs the bad, because immediately when all these people go hunting for Michael, they roll up on some kids at a playground. And we met these kids earlier in the movie, Blake, when we're introduced to the best two damn characters maybe in this trilogy, Big and Little John. They love each other. They're getting high. They're partying. They're having
dancing.
I mean, the tall one's dressed like a butt pirate, and the other one's dancing and smoking weed, and they are having a great time till the kids start trying to play pranks on them. These are two weirdos that bought Michael Myers' house and fixed it up and are now living in it because they love the fact that they're living in an old house where people got killed at, and these kids are trying to play pranks on them, and they run them off. These same kids are in the playground, and Lindsay, everybody says she had a great performance. I thought she was okay for what little bit she did. I thought she stood out, except for Anthony Michael Hall, out of some of these legacy characters. She runs down there, and these two girls are swinging. They're like, "Oh, are you going to be like the guy in the white mask is playing peekaboo with us?" And then they go, "Yeah, he keeps getting closer and closer." And he goes, "There he is now." And it cuts to Michael standing at the top of the hill with the mask from the little boy who stole all the candy covered in blood. You know me with my questions. How long has he been screwing with these kids out there in this playground that the boy ran over to mess with him or try to find him or whatever, and he killed him? And then immediately after going out, Blake, we get the scene from the original. Look, Marion sees him in the back rearview mirror. He jumps up top. Those two worthless characters that will live across the street from Julian, they are worthless. Marion wastes all the gunshots, and then we get the horrible line of, "This is for Dr. Loomis," and then the gun clicks, and she gets her ass killed. She looks like a moron. And then the other guy's trying to strangle him with a stethoscope and gets stabbed in the brain. And then the chick is like, she's got a worse shot than Hawkins. She's not able to hit him. And then Michael kicks the door and she blows her own damn brains out. He quickly dispatched of these three characters that we thought were going to be bigger, I guess a bigger part of the movie. And then we find out who is really going to be the bigger part of the movie, because Lindsay takes the final girl route and she hits him in the face over and over with a bag of bricks. And then he's about to kill her, and she pulls the mask off, just like in the original. And for some reason, this is another thing that stuck with me. He's been killing people without that mask, so why is he freaking out now that they're pulling the mask off of him? Other than the fact maybe he couldn't see with his one eye. I guess that would be the thing, is he's trying to readjust it so he can see, because he's only got one eye that works. We get a cool chase scene there where he actually cannot find her. And I don't know if that's due to age or what, but he cannot find her. She hid from the boogeyman and survives.
I love that point you just made about age being a reason why he couldn't find her, or he just gave up. Hey, I'm moving on to the next thing.
Yeah.
I'm going back to decorate these bodies I just killed, because that's exactly what he did. And you got to wonder, you and I've had the conversation before, did Lindsay watch him do that?
Yes.
One thing about that doctor character that I thought was a nice little callback, when they're leaving the house in the original. Oh, I forgot my stethoscope. When they're leaving the bar in Kills, oh, let me go back in. They got my stethoscope. And then eventually, that's kind of what gets him killed, because he wraps around his head like he's choking him, and Michael just turns around. Like there's nothing like holding him in place. He just turns around and then stabs him in the eye. So I thought that was really clever what they did with him. But yeah, really cool, intense scene. It kind of slowed everything down. Up to this point, all the kills were kind of quick, violent, vulgar, and this kind of slowed everything down. Him walking through the woods, hearing him breathe, her trying to control her breathing while hiding. I think it was something that I think it was perfectly timed for this movie. This scene was,
because this movie's 100 miles an hour, dude. When it comes to Michael, he's steadily killing. Tommy and Lonnie and Allison and Cameron find those bodies, and you mentioned it in your notes, or you might have mentioned it on the phone. Lonnie seeing Marion dead, and he's just like, "Oh God, Tommy, Marion." And then these characters truly do care for each other, and it's truly heartbreaking to see that all the stuff they've been celebrating, surviving, it's come back to them, and now some of these people are gone. And now, speaking of gone, Big and Little John, they're just trying to enjoy a night, and somebody's knocking on their door. And there was a nice little foreshadowing moment when Big John goes outside. He takes that golf club and he reaches over and he taps that pitchfork to let people know that's a real pitchfork. It goes ding, ding, ding on the side of it. And Michael comes in through the back, and the guy
I didn't notice that.
yeah. And the guy that played Stewart from Mad TV, he's like, somebody's in our house, and I don't think it's a kid. And immediately we're taking off watches. We're taking off the robe. We're grabbing a little bitty knife that they're using to cut cheese with. I've got my knife, Big John, or Little John. This is tough. This is tough. They search through the house, and Michael just brutally, I know I said brutal in the last review a lot, but he just mangles. He mangles Big John, and it's tough to watch because I like these characters. It's tough to watch.
These are two really good characters, and Ronnie, as many scenes that this movie has that is fantastic, whether it's Michael coming out of the fire, just the shots of Michael walking around in the burnt mask. I would say every scene filmed at the Myers house is gold.
Yeah.
Every scene when it's lit up with Big John and Little John, and then when it's, there's no power in the house pretty much with Lonnie and Cameron and Allison. But yeah, these two characters, the love that they have for each other, you really connect with them. Like all it is two people that really care about each other, and you can tell that they're scared, and it's really well done. It's really well done. And this is where really all the theories started pouring in on Michael. Is it the house? Is it the window? Is it the room? What is it? Because he goes right back to Judith's room. He's staring at the window when Little John says, Michael, you come home. And he turns around and
goes, kills him.
We hear a fart noise.
From there on, it's standard horror movie stuff. Lonnie, figures out he's heading straight to his house. Lonnie pulls up with those two kids, and Lonnie's like, I got to do this. I did like earlier in the movie that Lonnie admitted he never went in the house. He ran off because he got too scared. I thought that was a good little touch that they threw in there. But Lonnie tells him to stay in the car, and he's in there 35 seconds before you hear a scream, and he's dead.
You hear a gunshot.
And then those kids go in, and in typical cop fashion, they're going through there. When they find Michael, it gets pretty freaking crazy because he stabs Cameron. Pretty sure he stabs Allison. Did she stab him in the gut over and over? That's what she does. Like he grabs her, and she just immediately starts stabbing him in the stomach over and over and over. And he throws her down the steps, and she breaks her leg. And then Cameron's up there, and he kills Cameron pretty much in front of her. He just rams his head over and over and over, probably breaking his neck. It almost looks like he's paralyzed. And then she's screaming for him to come down there to her. So he obliges, and I'm much obliged. He comes down there with her, but to let her know that you're not outsmarting me. He stops right there when he's even with Cameron. He twists his neck all the way around, killing him. And he's down there, and you get a scene that people complain about all the time, where she's like, do it. And why isn't he stabbing her? But she's saying, do it to Karen, who is stabbing him with a pitchfork in the back. And then she curb stomps the piss out of his head and grabs his mask and lures him away from her daughter and to the plan that her and Tommy have. It was a cool scene because once again, you don't get to see his face, but when he stands up, you can see the fear in Karen's eyes as she takes off running, and she lures them right there to this mob of people, which should have been much more.
Karen has really good dialogue too as she's exiting the Myers house about his Halloween. She brings up Judith. And if you rewatch James Jude Courtney walking across this street, Ronnie, I argue that it's the best Michael Myers walk there is. And I know that's ridiculous because there is an original. Like, the original has to be the best, but it's better than Dick Warlock. It's better than
Busta Rhymes,
7-foot mother effer in Rob Zombie's movie.
Also, it's Karen getting to use her psychological stuff on Michael.
Yeah.
She's a psychologist. So she brings up stuff that she knows is going to trigger him. I can't believe I'm using the word trigger, which is bringing up Judith, which is the first time we hear Judith, I think, in this movie.
Michael Myers triggered.
Come on, man.
Pussy.
Here's one of the scenes that everybody cuts up about Blake. It's when the mob beat the living piss out of Michael Myers. And I'm going to just go ahead and tell you, I'm going to be completely honest with you, brother. This is the apex of the movie for me, because this is when I got to the edge of my seat, and I'm not joking. They're shooting him. They're hitting him. they are beating him. Of course, they're shooting each other too. I like that realistically, these idiots they're all standing in a circle. Some of these normal people get shot, but they beat his ass to the ground. And before I get to my favorite part or where I thought they were really going to do something brave, they have to ruin it by having Brackett there to say, I guess everyone is Halloween night, Michael. I guess everybody's entitled to one good scare. There's a scene where he's laying face down and his hands are twitching. And at that moment, maybe his fingers were twitching. And at that moment, Blake, I scooted to the front of the couch. And I'm pretty sure I told Lindsay, they're finna kill him. This is finna to be pretty good. They're finna let this whole town kill Michael Myers. And that's what's fisting to happen. That's how this is fisting to end. And then, of course, he gets up and he starts slashing and stabbing. And we get your favorite scene with Tommy. And he kills Tommy. And then, they cut back to the Myers house where the police are there now. And they're checking on Allison.
Yeah, they're bandaging up they're bracing her leg up because she now has a broken leg, Ronnie. I mean, that stumble down the stairs snapped her leg. I'm not sure if you mentioned that or not, but yeah, pretty crazy. Karen's checking on her, and
what's with the vision?
I need you to walk me through this. I need you to tell me your thoughts, your opinions, your theories. Karen walks to the front lawn, and she's kind of just taking everything in, and she looks up at Judith's window, and she sees 6-year-old Michael. And we've had some voices in the background, whether it's Laurie Strode talking about evil does brute force doesn't kill evil. Evil grows. Evil gets stronger every time it kills. Karen,
she's doing the Loomis lines.
I believe Karen has dialogue, or maybe it's Hawkins, talking about the cop who's looking through the window.
Mm-hmm.
And they said maybe Michael wasn't looking through the window. Maybe he was looking at the reflection, maybe looking inside himself. And I'll be honest, I'm not educated enough to figure out that deeper meaning. I know it's out there, but there are a few scenes in this movie where characters are looking at their reflection, Ronnie.
Yeah, the cop at the very beginning of it. And Michael, you can see his reflection when Little John says something to him. I thought it was going somewhere with this window, and it never goes anywhere past this movie. So I really don't have an answer to that. I don't know what drew her up there, why she was seeing that. Maybe after hearing those stories, because she's looking through the window at the hospital when Laurie's talking about that. Maybe as a psychiatrist or psychologist, whatever she is, she wanted to go up there and look through the window herself to see.
Let's not forget, she's traumatized too. As educated as she is also a traumatized woman.
And she's lost her husband on this night, and her mother's had her guts beat, and her daughter's got a broke leg, and she thinks Michael Myers is dead again. And she goes upstairs and she looks through the window, and then Michael pops up for the surprise ending and kills her. We get the cool music and stabs her, boom, Halloween Kills, and that's the end of that movie. My last note I made was, what's the point of the window? I really wish, because I thought we were headed in some cool supernatural directions heading into that last movie. They start bringing up the radio tower that I didn't even notice. I didn't even notice when I watched this movie there's a radio tower in the background. The only thing I noticed from the flashback is man, why does it look like Haddonfield sitting on top, like a suburb on top of a big city? I didn't like that. I like the idea of it just being a little suburb out in the middle of nowhere. Halloween Kills, man. I love this movie. Even with the Evil Dies Tonight, even with some of the dialogue that makes me cringe, it's a Michael Myers movie. We are with Michael Myers the entire time. We get probably the best Michael Myers of any Halloween movie.
Agreed.
The way he's shot, the way he kills, the way, his mannerisms in this movie are absolutely amazing. And I know everybody says Nick Castle, but I think James Hugh Courtney knocked it out the park in this one. If everybody was asking, what's your greatest Michael performance? I would say whoever was behind the mask in Halloween Kills. And this movie is really, really good. Every movie has bad parts to it. And horror fans are getting as retarded as wrestling fans because sometimes they don't know how good they have it.
Yeah, that's my thing. You want to nitpick stuff here. Like we just pointed out many, many, many things of continuity, good writing, and good storytelling that maybe came from 2018 or went all the way back to the original. Like there's so many little bitty things in the writing that make this good, and people are going to nitpick it when Halloween 2, 3, 4, and 5 and 6 exist. Shut the hell up. David Gordon Green gave us two fantastic sequels to 1978 so far, and I'm excited to do ends tomorrow.
I didn't bring up the fact that Brackett gets killed. He gets his throat slit. You know,
Good.
another legacy character gone. Guys, when they bring legacy characters back, especially in horror movies, they're doing it to kill them, to show that nobody's safe. Eventually, they'll do it with Nev Campbell. Okay. It's to show nobody's safe. So don't get too, I mean, who cares about Marion anyway? I've always said that, but I guess
Okay,
I mean,
who gives a shit?
yeah. All right, Blake, that's 2 movies down. Halloween night. It's time for Halloween ends, buddy. Glasses are popping, by the way.
Thanks, brother.
See y'all.